Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton. Along with me, as always, is the border crossing beast, Bethany McChesney.
Oh, I was expecting so much worse.
I know, especially after that great thing we went through, but I just thought it was, I thought, it was a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the boot camp. We'll save
Well,
that one.
we talked about so many things. I was like always gonna come up with something awful
Well, I thought about doing the boot camp one, but that was just a bit much, you
or
know.
something about missing the balls or
Well, I actually, so what's funny is I had written down the boycotter of the balls, and I couldn't remember exactly why I put it down there anymore. Why did I put it down? That's why she's like, I don't remember. So why did I put boycotter of the balls, missing the ball?
what do you mean? Why did you put it down?
I wrote it down. I can't remember why I wrote it down.
Because I missed them in my Decafit.
Oh, right. Yes.
What?
That's right. That's right. I can remember the boycotter of the balls. Yes, because you boycotted the dead balls
I did.
and you made it a contagious disease.
Uh-huh. But I'm convinced though that the dead ball over the wall is a forgettable station.
Yeah, but you know what? I actually don't mind it though. It's not a bad station. I think it's
Well,
the
exactly. Nobody minds it. That's why. You don't think about it because it's
Mhm.
just a whatever station.
So should it be 80 pounds and 60 pounds instead of 60 and 40?
No.
Oh, it would be more
It's
memorable then.
no, it's perfect the way it is because it's sandwiched between two stations that are game changers.
Hmm. I'm
And
liking
that's
this.
why it's forgettable.
I'm liking this 80 and 60 idea. Megiddo used to say it should be 100 for the men.
Oh, hmm.
Now, I don't know about 100, but I know that when we do Arcs 1, we had that 80-pound one up the hill, and 80 pounds, it adds up.
I don't think Deca's a lot of the Deca like purpose for being is that it gets your everyday gym goer to do racing. So I don't think we should create another barrier of entry. I think the box height is already enough. So I don't think so.
Would you have put the box to 20 inches?
For certain populations, yes.
But then you're going to have to switch. So if like for their plan to leave everything the same and never switch, do you think it would have been better at 20? I don't know.
It should be at 20 for 65 plus and for the youth. For the youth under 18. So the our 10 to 13 year olds, it should be absolutely. And I mean the 14 to 18 it's fine, but I think the youth and the over 65, yes, absolutely.
All right. And it did make a difference now that you can like do that crawl thing.
Yeah, but still, it's such a barrier of entry, especially for the older populations who are genuinely afraid of it.
Yeah, we've had people like that at Farm Girl. By the way, remember, if you're crawling over, you have to take your hands off.
Yeah, just lift them off at the top. But still, it's very scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like if you got, and most gyms do the narrow or wobbly or box,
Yeah,
that it's tippy. I actually
yeah,
I fell, my last Wednesday testing out my shoes on the box for,
yeah.
to see if they'd rotate well. And
Mhm,
they actually rotated well, but I got stuck coming off and just did a little whoops. So nothing
mhm.
bad, but we did have a girl at Farm Girl literally rack her knee. One girl broke her elbow, I think, falling off.
Falling?
And another girl, she fell off and hurt her knee, but then got back up and then like got up again and you heard snap. Just when she put it on, it was like, yeah, it was gross. It's one of the
Oh, maybe we shouldn't like create some trauma around this box because I think we have
box
enough.
is fantastic and everybody loves it. All right. Let's not take too long because we have a pizza curfew tonight.
Yeah, we the pizza is ordered. We have to be done in a certain time.
All right. So let's start out right off the hop. Guess what? We were in Deka, Fort Wayne, which straight off was a nice venue.
It was actually a beautiful venue for the Deca
Yeah.
Fit.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was good. Um, Lots of room, lots of space. Made it very easy to get in and out of. Plenty of
Hmm.
parking. Although bullshit on the parking because like you had to pay $8 and like pay every time you came back. That was crap. I don't like that. I don't know what's up
Yeah.
with that. But if you tell them you were volunteering
Or maybe just volunteer,
or just volunteer. Yeah, that's better.
as you did, so we didn't have
I
to pay every
did a
time.
lot of that. Yeah, I did a lot of
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
So yeah, but it's so there you go. If you put in a little volunteer work, you can get out of paying for parking at Deka. But the venue was really cool. Town was nice. It's like it was a nice little town or city, whatever you call. But right to it, you want to start with men or women?
Saturday,
Saturday, men or women?
we can start with the men.
All right, start with the men. You want to go? You want to talk about the men, and I'll talk about the women since you were slightly involved.
Sure. So the Deca Fit on Saturday. We and I'm just going to mention too, this weekend was really crazy because of all the technology issues that we had with travel and, bank shutting down and all that. So there were a lot of flights that were canceled, especially if you were flying with certain airlines. So we knew there were going to be some people missing the races. But I don't know how much it affected these elite heats for the deck fit, except me, for example, I was supposed to race the Deca Fit relay with Heather, and it was 10:30 the night before, and she had been trying all day to get on a flight after her flights got canceled. And then she was like, it's just not going to happen. So I switched over to the Deca Fit solo. I don't know how it maybe affected the men's race, but it was
Well,
kind of a crazy weekend in that way.
Isaac Sanderson being the big name that ended up not making it.
Isaac and Julie Best were going to be
Yeah.
there for the Ultra.
Mhm.
Not the Deca Fit solo, but they were going to be there the next day. So yeah, it did create a little bit of issues. I know we had talked to Yancey, and he said at least 100 athletes that he knew of didn't make it due to flight cancellation. So there was some stressful situations, at least well on my part, with my partner not being able to make it with the issues with that. So the Deca Fit solo on the men's side, we had Dylan come in and he ran 29:31. Nick Riker a bit behind him there in 30:44. Cole Walkington put in a good time, 31:19. And then, yeah, we had Hayden Warner. I don't know if this is his first DECA fit, but this was the first time I had really seen him. He comes from a cycling background, a bit in the ultra gravel road cycling, 32:03. Alexander Ratkovich, again, his first DECA fit also in a
Got wheels.
32:04. Yeah, and this was a really close battle again in the burpees, and then with Adam Beach as well in a 32:08. So that's your top six there with the elite man.
And I will say, because I did the commentary a little bit thrown together at the last minute, so forgive me for a few mistakes on it. Like, for example, I called Alex Zach a couple times, which is really funny because I called him Zach for a little while after telling Jeff, the MC, that his name was Alex. So I told somebody else who he was and was calling him the right name before that, and then proceeded to call him the wrong name after that. Who knows why? And
So,
same with Adam Beach. I had Adam Beach calling him the wrong name. I can't remember which one, but we
mhm,
got it straightened out. It was all good. It was all good.
mhm. Yeah, and I mean Alexander Ratkovich sounds so much like Alexander Ronkovich.
Yes.
So the whole
Some
race, I kept hearing Alexander Ronkovich, and I had thought that Dylan had maybe made a Dylan move and told the MC to call him Alexander Ronkovich as like a I am channeling Ronkovich when I race. Can you just jokingly call me
Oh
Alexander
God.
Ronkovich? So I actually went up to Morgan after the race because I know she's friends with Dylan
Alex.
and Alex, and I was like, why did Dylan ask the MC to announce him as Alexander Ronkovich? And she's like, oh my gosh, no, that's my friend Alexander Ratkovich. And but yeah, the whole time I thought Dylan had asked the MC to call him Ronkovich, but anyways, very similar names, but very funny. But Alexander Ratkovich had an incredible first DECA fit. So this is a name to definitely look out for. He is a university track athlete and has a phenomenal running ability.
And he's not a slight build either. Like he's got
Mhm.
some good muscle to him. And I mean, to almost break 32 on your first one is impressive. So I want to see
Yeah.
his like okay, 17:31 was his 5K time.
Hmm.
And then 14:33 in the zones. So 17:31. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that's pretty quick. Like if we go to Dylan, 17:08. So he was not far off Dylan on that on his
Yeah.
first one, getting used to everything. So that
And
was
he was just figuring out some of the stations. Like
oh yeah.
as he was warming up, there were people trying to teach him how to do box overs and stuff. So massive potential there.
Yeah, he lost a lot of ground on the machines, especially the
Yeah.
skier. The skier was not a great machine for him. But yeah, he definitely could have pushed for that a little harder for that fourth spot. And you never know, maybe even got into giving Cole Walkington. By the way, Cole Walkington,
Hmm.
monster.
Yeah.
Just just awesome. Was great watching him. Um, he 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 has brought the whole family in.
Hmm.
There was so many Walkingtons there. It was crazy, and they all did really well.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to watch. Dylan
And
Scott.
him and his dad
Oh,
racing the next day was so inspiring to see also.
his dad looks like his marginally older brother.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure what age division he's in, but yeah, he looks fit, and he
Hmm.
is fit. Um, before we get to Dylan, actually, I'm going to say so Nick Riker really just a little bit off, not terrible. We know Nick is always around that 30
30
15,
low.
30 20 kind of thing,
Hmm.
and today was 30 44. Still, so not a bad time, but just not as good as Nick could have. But Dylan just, I believe this is the fastest time this year he put in. Like, I think, fastest,
Um, I think so. So
like
far,
not
yeah.
not just his fastest, but the fastest time on the year,
Hmm.
and did it while coming off a bit of an injury. You probably know a little bit more about what he was going through.
Yeah, a bit of an ankle injury, not entirely diagnosed, maybe a bit of a bursitis or some issues with the Achilles, but so he's been a bit off of his running game, so he was feeling things out, but he said, going into this race, he felt okay and that things were a bit under control. So, yeah, maybe not 100%, but close enough that he felt like he was safe to run.
And I am right that that is the best time this year because before previously it was Isaac Sanderson with a 29:41. Dylan bested that by 10 seconds, which when you're talking sub 30, 10 seconds is
Yeah.
a lot.
That's racing someone or not racing someone. So for Dylan to do this, I think solo was really impressive.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Like we said, Alex, that was a great name. Josh Gonzalez always doing his thing. Austin 10, I can never say his name properly.
Kennelshoff.
Kennelshoff. Um, he's someone that I actually thought looked a little off in the beginning, but ended up improving his time this year by almost 30 seconds.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry. Wait. Did I read that wrong? I read it wrong here. Sorry. 32:30. So yeah, he was a little bit slower, but not bad. Like we're 22 seconds off of PR.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So he looked a little bit better. And I just thought in the beginning he looked maybe a little tentative. Maybe he was just pacing and trying some different strategy, but ended up doing pretty well. And we need to shout out, our boy Mason Beekes in his rookie debut in the elite squad. We threw him into the fire.
Yeah. Yep. So there were a lot of really good runners in this field. Will Schumacher, Dustin Rudder, Josh Gonzalez. And so Mason, because he jumped onto the Spartan scene about a year ago and has just fallen in love with this whole thing. And he's been training with me a bit and just such a great athlete. And so yeah, we threw him into that first heat for various reasons, and he held his own. And he was humbled in all the right ways, and to just kind of see the perspective of the athletes in this field. And yeah, he ran a great complete debut rookie appearance here with 35:57. So good for him. There's a future ahead for Mason for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like he was in there with, like, come out ahead of Kevin Gregory. And we know when it comes to the fit, Kevin Gregory is not elite, but he still puts in good times. And I
Mhm.
mean, the 36:45 is great. And I do need to give a shout out to my relay partner, Juan Carlos, who got in there in the elite with a 36:26. Nice time. Nothing to sneeze at.
Mhm.
Uh, let's see the women's times here. All right. So, first off, a smaller women's field. And again, I think a lot of this had to do with some of the travel restrictions. So we only had seven women there in there, but we did have currently the number one in the world.
Mhm.
Last year's Decafit champion, Morgan Schultz. And although I think still this is not her best run, it's better than what she had previously done this year.
Yeah, she had a rough go at her last one. She said she just felt a little bit out of sorts, kind of a tough time going in and out of stations. And there's a little bit of um, dust that needs to be brushed off once in a while. And so her first decafit of the season didn't go fantastic from her perspective. So this one was a bit more of a redemption on that. Again, this isn't close to her capabilities or what we saw last year at Worlds, but she was very much running solo, wire to wire with this one. So a bit of a time trial, I suppose. This was a very close event for her as she lives in Chicago. So this is pretty close for her. So she put in a great race considering she didn't really have anybody pushing her.
And this moves her, and when we say it's an improvement on her time this year, it was almost a 2 minute improvement. Moves her from 15th to fifth.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now she's Lauren Weeks, Vivian Tafuto, Lauren Griffith, Tara Jackson, Morgan Schultz. That's your
Yeah.
top five right now. So she's now very, I would say, in the secure spot.
Hmm.
Well, Bethany McChesney, she had an okay run, not her best, but she was thrown in last minute with some travel details a little bit. It was not part of the plan. The plan was the ultra, and some fool in a van had an idea that you should jump and do this, and instead, since you weren't going to be able to do the relay, and Bethany being the highly suggestible type, just took the advice.
Yeah, I'm very easily swayed.
How
We'll call it
did
positive peer pressure.
how did it feel out there for you though? Like, because as it wasn't really part of the plan.
Yeah, I felt pretty awful to be honest. So I this weekend was all about the ultra. Heather and I were gonna jump in, put in a time for the fits relay. And it really never even crossed my mind about racing a solo fit. And until in the car when we were trying to figure out what was going on with Heather, and I was trying to figure out a backup plan for a fit relay, and then Dave's like, why don't I just race a solo? I was like, well, I'm really not prepared for the solo. But then as I started mulling it over, I'm like, well, maybe I should just race the solo. If I'm here anyways, maybe you can put a time down. But I've really not been preparing for a solo fit at all. A pretty good lack of speed work or anything like in and out of zones or anything like this at all. And even wrapping my head around doing that kind of effort the day before the ultra, I just really wasn't mentally prepared for it. Um, but at the end of the day, Heather could not make it in time, so it just made the most sense logically. Um, yeah, so it was like 11 p.m. or 10:30 the night before when I was like, okay, I'm racing the deck fit solo. So it did feel pretty awful, um and I mean, if anyone knows how the race went down, it was Brooklyn and I were very close. I was ahead of her for most of the race by 20 or 30 seconds. And then um,
It
after
happened.
the bike, I, in my head, after the bike, when the bike is done, you can really push then. You have to kind of conserve and then the bike and I had it in my head, okay, the bike is done, the race is almost over. And the ball over thing just completely lost my brain as a station that was even coming up. And I went into the sled, the tank push, and I had started it, and then everyone was yelling at me. And everybody knows that race people are yelling at you. You don't always know, are they cheering for me? I don't really understand, but people were starting to really yell at me. And then I realized I'd gone into the wrong station. Actually, what I first thought was everyone's yelling at me because I grabbed a men's tank. And then I ran over to the end of the zone, and then people were like, no, 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 wrong station. And so then I went out, and then I went into the ball over shoulders. And by that point, Brooklyn had obviously taken over, and she was a couple ball overs ahead of me. So I kind of shut things down, and I think she probably did too a bit because at this point, the two of us, had established a bit of a lead on fourth, and neither of us were running. Like super fast times, and we were both racing the ultra the next day, so we'd kind of turned off you know, the speed shoes, and we just chilled out a little bit. So we finished, and I knew I'd come fourth regardless. My time wasn't going to be stellar, and she was probably the same. So yeah, a bit of a snafu there with the station order, and yeah, it felt kind of silly. But I think some of it too was that like mentally I wasn't in the headspace to race it. Usually I do mental prep to kind of run through the race in my head, and I didn't do it at all. And I don't know. I was just kind of running it to run it, and yeah, kind of a very silly error on my part, and I might not ever live this one down.
Well, and then you did not come fourth. You came third. You kind of just misspoke there. So yeah, you got your third
Oh,
place.
sorry.
Yeah, your third place, and yeah, you guys. It was so we had Morgan, Brooklyn, and Bethany, and we were very impressed with Brooklyn, but we're going to talk a little bit more about her now when it comes to this scenario. So we'll switch to the ultra results, and this we'll start. We'll go right. We'll go to the men here because, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. And right off the hop, we're going to talk about everybody knew going into this. And everybody always says stuff like, oh, if they do 24 hours of Deka or 15 high roxes or whatever, that's Dylan Scott's world. So Deka put together 5 back-to-back Deka fits. And guess what? It was Dylan Scott's world. Like,
Yeah.
phenomenal. I would say this is one of the most impressive physical performances I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't lose his times here. Where are we? Where are we? Total time for
Yeah.
5 Deca fits, 2:42. They didn't expect anybody to be able to break 3 minutes or 3 hours. He did it in 2 hours, 42 minutes. 32 minutes to 02 for the first one, 32:20 for the second one, 32:03 for the third, 32:44. And then a whopping just slacked right off and got a 33:21. So any one of those would probably get him into the Elite 15 with a roll down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't
The consistency alone with these is so impressive. And he had, the first Deca fit there, he had some guys that tried to hang with him. And other than that, he was just in a world of his own. And to just keep those times so consistent. The last one, obviously, he was hurting a little bit, but he didn't drop off that much. This is so impressive. Yancey laid out the times to beat. So 3 hours for men, 3:20 for women. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh no way. That's crazy. But yeah, we have 3 men that went sub 3 hours, and that blows my mind from when I worked out those numbers from the beginning. And Dylan not only went under 3 hours, but he was well under 3 hours. And the the tricky part too about the Deca Fit Ultra is you're changing what you're doing so frequently that typically during ultras you have these long stretches of time where you're just running, and you can refuel, rehydrate, and kind of take the time to do that. But the Deca Fit Ultra, you're you're running for your 2 minutes between stations, and then you're on a station. And with this one too, we weren't allowed to have any sort of fluid on the course. You could have like gels and stuff. You could have food or whatever you want to call it on the course, but you could not have any sort of fluid. So pit stops had to be factored into this as well. And that just added a bit of complications to it because it's not like you could wear a hydration vest. So at some
Mhm.
point you had to make your way through a pit, which they did a really good job of setting up the pit in a way that there was a lane that you could run through the middle. So you could run through the pit as you were fueling. But this is such a fast event still. And to run these times, you're still running fast. So Dylan was, and I know this because Jeff was his pit crew, his solo pit crew, and he would meet him at the entrance and they would fly through the pit, still running a 4 minute K as Dylan would chug his drink, and he'd be out just as
Mhm.
fast as he was in. And so hitting these times with trying to fuel and all of that is just, it's so impressive. And I think the fueling piece was a lot more challenging than people really anticipated going into it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. A couple of names that jumped out to me that really impressed me. Obviously, in second place, Mark Polzin. Mark being over 40 years old, and again running really consistently. I mean, he did have more of a drop off. We went through a 33:42 to a 36:32, so a 3 minute drop off, but over 5 decafits, that's not a big drop off.
No.
Like that was amazing. And he was one of the people, although he was hurting, he looked so composed the entire time. And compared to the last time we had really got to talk about Mark Polzin and Decafit, this is a much more positive light and no DQ, no penalties, no nothing like that. And burpee form beyond reproach. I mean, we're talking textbook. You look beautiful out there. So congrats to Mark. Um, One of the things that jumped out to me, and I'd be remiss to not say it, and some people saw it in the live stream. I've never seen anybody put everything on the line the way Brian Neely did.
Hmm.
And we're talking to Chase eighth place from ninth. And he just threw everything, like literally to the point of being unsafe and zero concern for one's well-being on his last set of burpees. Um, so just great effort. I don't actually recommend that much effort to anybody, but wow, wow, talk about giving it all you got. That was amazing.
But I think, when I saw him finishing and I saw videos of it too, I think a lot of this has to do with how difficult it was to fuel.
Hmm.
He was obviously bonking so
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
And it was so hard to take in anything substantial. So I think that's what it comes down to. This is an event, you're running high intensity intervals for sub 4 hours, 3 hours plus, and it's just so hard to take in anything.
And visually, you're trying to think of it in your head. I want you to picture the people at the end of a marathon who can't stand. They're wobbling on their knees and they're falling over. And then picture them doing ram burpees in that
Yeah.
state while getting punched in the gut.
Yeah,
I mean,
something quite like coordinated.
yeah, like just, I don't know in the state he was how he even managed to stand. Like I was right beside him and I'm like, I got a hand on the front and a hand on the back, just waiting to catch him and to
Yeah.
catch the ram from falling on his head. But like Herculean effort.
Hmm.
I mean, amazing. Don't do this at home.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just unbelievable. I mean, yeah, so it was exciting. Grady Jackson was someone who was, anticipated to do very well. This, and he did do very well. He's 305, which again, when we were saying that 3 hour mark is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, do you think that that was probably on par for him, or do you think like he did have a fairly big drop off comparatively, like 32:51 for the first one to 40:09 for the last one? Do you think he had a bit of a rough day, or do you think this was what was expected? And it's just Dylan and the other guys just happened to go so fast.
I think Grady would have had expectations of running with Dylan a lot longer than he did, and I think some of this is just he went out pretty hot. So going from a 32:51 to a 41:03 in his fourth one,
Yeah.
maybe there was a bit of too hot, too early. Maybe if his pacing had been a little bit different. Um, I do remember running by Grady a couple of times on the course and just thinking, I know this is an incredible athlete, and he just seemed to be really, really struggling.
Yeah.
So he probably, and again, I don't know the fueling situation with him, but maybe he bonked early, couldn't take in enough, and might have been a little bit too hot. So I think there was probably a combination of things there because he did definitely fade harder than a lot of the men above him.
Yeah. Yeah. He was pushing. I think he was a checkers or wreckers mindset. He's like, I'm going to win this or I'm going to blow up. And he kind
Yeah,
of blew up a little bit. I mean, he still ended up in fifth place, which is quite impressive.
yeah,
But we did have three guys go under that 3 hour mark as well. So they
yeah.
weren't expecting anyone to, and they got three. So Yancey has to order a couple more of those red Rams. It was good.
Uh, Good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was an epic event. A couple we mentioned our Canadians, Ryan Reed and Tyler Krushaninski, finishing 11th and 12th, respectively, 31, 3 hour 28 and 3 hour 31. Um, Ryan Reed getting 11th there because Tyler got 13 minutes and 22 seconds in penalties. Skipping a station and the run that follows the station, which obviously, if you miss a station, you're going to miss the run because you didn't know. If you knew, you'd be doing back-to-back runs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so he got some penalties there. It was really impressive. Great work. Let's hit the women's field. And why don't you start off with your vicious battle with Heather White? Teammates split
Yeah,
apart,
yeah, we were throwing
hostilities.
blows. Um, yeah, when they again released these times that, Yancey was like, sub 3 for men, sub 320 for women. I was like, oh man, I would be so impressed if a woman went sub 320. So, but I did know going into this that there were women that were going to go for it, which would be running an average of 40-minute deca fits. Super impressive. So it went out fast. That first deca fit, and I'm sorry, I'm part of the problem.
Heather was cursing you all while she was running her first lap, while at the same time going, "You guys are gonna die."
Yeah, yeah. I kind of went out with the group. I don't know. It is really hard. Like you feel really good at the beginning, and I was like, I'm not gonna lead it. I'm not gonna lead it. I'm not gonna lead. I'm like, oh shit, I'm leading it.
I
Going into the first station. Um, but yeah, and so the first deca fit was quite fast.
hmm
I remember finishing the first fit, and I was in fourth place and ran a time that was the time that I ran in my first deca fit ever solo. It's like, oh my God, I'm gonna pay for this. Running a 39-minute first deca fit. So yeah, but again, we've never done this before, and I did think that some of the women might potentially come back a little bit more, and I was just constantly surprised at the pace that Brooklyn and Lauren Rentella and Janelle continued on with their as the laps went on, and and Heather made a commanding pass. It was very poetic that she smashed me. We sat side by side on the bike in the second deck of it, and I was like, this is when she passes me. And she smashed the bike. And Heather and I had a little bit of a bet before about how fast she was going to do each of her bikes, and she maintained her bet. And she smashed each of her bikes, and so she did make a commanding move ahead of me on that bike, and then the gap just kind of maintained through the rest of it. But yeah, I was so impressed. But it, and again, the pit situation is a whole element to this that beforehand. So we didn't find out really that much ahead of time that you weren't going to be able to carry anything
hmm
while you ran. So again, the pit had to be part of your strategy. So you could have consume on the course, but you can take fluids. So the and I real no one stopped at all in that first deck fit. It was like we were running the first deck fit like a real deck fit. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, are these girls really not going to stop? And the air was dry. It was super air conditioned. And I was like, geez, I don't know. I just kept thinking if this is how it's going to be, someone's got to blow up at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then in the second lap, people started to try to fuel, and I just found the dryness of the air, like I couldn't swallow, and my stomach was in knots. And you have two laps, and then you're back into the next station, and it was so complicated. So, anyways, I found I couldn't take in anything. And I don't know, I've talked to a lot of people too that have kind of said the same thing. It was so hard to consume. And my whole fueling strategy was thrown out the window. I think I consumed six gummy bears and half a licorice in the
Nice.
second Decafit, and then my stomach was like, no. And I remember early on in the second Decafit when I tried to start consuming glucose, my stomach was like, if you put something else in me, I'm gonna throw it up. So I remember looking for a garbage can, and there's a picture of me that I saw going in the box overs looking up, and I was like, I was looking for a garbage can because like, I'm gonna puke, and I have like chipmunk cheeks of gummy bears, thinking I'm gonna have to spit these out because I'm gonna vomit. And after that, I knew I'm not taking in any more. I can't consume anything else. We're gonna have to rely on water and electrolytes because otherwise I'm just gonna vomit. And a lot of the girls kind of said the same thing. It was so
Mm.
hard to consume. Um, so I was just kind of waiting and buying my time and still until my body started to cramp up and seize up. I know a lot of the girls cramped up a lot earlier than they expected. But yeah, it speaks also to the caliber and the strength of these athletes because this was not a typical ultra where when you're racing trail ultras and stuff and you have your vest and you can be consuming constantly, it just wasn't this way with
Yeah.
this event. Um, you couldn't do it that way. Brooklyn, I know, was one of the few people who her pit stops were a little bit different, where she would stop and consume and then she'd go back out. And a lot of people kind of ran through, shot, some fluid or something in their mouth and then ran and kind of kept it going like that. But that would be part of the strategy for running this DecaFit Ultra is just figuring out how to consume on the fly. And you couldn't take anything out of the pit zone either. And
You could take food. You couldn't take any drinks.
yeah, but again, and this is, yes, you can, but consuming food,
Yeah.
you have like 40 seconds to get it in you, and then, you're doing a station, that's so hard to do. And even I know Dylan, he, and such a man of integrity also because they didn't want you taking anything outside of that pit. So he would fly in, and again, Jeff was his pit crew. He would fly in, throw some fluids in his mouth, and fly out. Or, he needed a towel because, again, things were soaking wet.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but never anything outside of the pit. They didn't want you standing outside of the pit and, chugging water. You had to go in it. And he would just fly in, throw something down. Sometimes he'd run a lap with a towel or whatever, but never anything outside of the pit. And I did see some teams taking a little bit of advantage of this and kind of throwing stuff in out of the wayside too. But Dylan especially really stuck to those rules and kept everything inside the pit. Um, but yeah, that was a whole race strategy that having known any of that maybe a little bit beforehand, I maybe would have thought a bit more about it, but it was a big part of it, I think, in the end.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you do these ultras, like, I mean, you think back to World Stuff is Mud or anything like that, anytime there's a pit strategy is massive. And where this one may have seemed less likely going in because it is a little bit shorter. You're talking
Mhm.
a sub 4 hour run for most people. Oh, well, that's not, you don't have to pit a lot for that, but you had to keep going. And I think Brooklyn was able to do her pit like that properly because obviously she was in the driver's seat. She's dictating, right? Everyone's playing catch up to her. So she's able to say, all right, I'm going to do mine. I do mine properly. And then other people are like, well, okay, I'm going to cut short to try to make up some ground, and then they pay for it in the long run. Where
Hmm.
she just keeps on trying. Brooklyn
She had
Nichols.
also done more simulations of the full event than anybody. She
Yeah.
had done multiple full sims in the couple weeks before. So I feel like she had also really dialed in what she needed to do.
Brooklyn made a massive fan out of me this weekend, not only with her incredible performance where she did get under that 320 mark, the only woman to do so, but also just her attitude in general. On the course, off the course, great young lady, huge fan, Brooklyn. So happy to have you there and can't wait to see what you do the rest of the year. She just killed it and with a smile on her face.
Me too. And this was the first time I really met Brooklyn in person. And I didn't know she was going to be in this race. And I didn't know she was going to be in the Deck Fit solo. Because again, Yancey had bumped her up because she was the only one in her age group in either one of the events. So
Mhm.
he bumped her up to the elite where she belongs.
Absolutely.
Um, but this is her first move into the elite, into the actual elite heat. And she was just the sweetest person in this ultra also. Every time she'd run by me, she'd be like, "Hey, are you okay? You're doing okay?" Yep. Like I'm fine. Like you're so
She
sweet.
she saw
Um,
this helpless old lady
I
walking
know. It's
along.
like like the grandma going by. She's like, but yeah, she was so sweet and just and I could speak for days about the hybrid racing community, but she also coming into this space personifies what it's about and just a like such a genuinely good person um in this space as well. And just the way she was encouraging people as she ran by, and just such a light about her as well. And everyone that finished, she congratulated them, and just, such a good person and a young athlete with so much potential. And, look out for Brooklyn in the future because so much potential. She's so raw still. She's learning. Um, and yeah, just her showing this weekend was incredibly impressive for someone of her age. She she didn't get overly excited at the beginning of the ultra. She ran her paces that she knew she could, and kind of kept her cool, and just a phenomenal athlete.
Now, I had picked Lauren Rentala to be on the podium to come third. Were you surprised? She ended up getting second place. Were you surprised at how fit she was? Because I mean, she doesn't. I think this is maybe her second type of DECA event ever.
I'm not surprised at how fit she is. I know she performed really well at High Rocks World. I've never raced Lauren Rantella. I have no idea personally about her capabilities. The ultra side of her, I had no idea. And again, just assuming, again, I don't know her training or anything else. There was a part of me that thought, maybe she's gone out too hard. She might fade a little bit, but she faded a bit, but not enough necessarily for people to catch her.
Yeah.
Um, I was running by her later in the race, but again, it wasn't enough. And yeah, I think she probably did prepare herself very well for this. And yeah, I mean, it showed. She came in second. She went out pretty hard though too. I was really impressed. I I had maybe a different strategy than a lot of the girls to kind of recover a little bit more on the stations. And I remember being beside her early on, and she was smashing ergs. And I just kept thinking, no way someone can hold this kind of pace. So I don't know what she kept maintaining on the ergs, but yeah, she went out hard, and she was on a mission this weekend, and she performed really well. So yeah, I was very impressed with her too. This is probably a long event for her as well, coming from the High Rocks world.
Yeah.
And yeah, she definitely performed really well.
And like we're talking rock, like before the event, she was actually there very early for the ultra. She watched a lot of the age groupers and open waivers. And like I was helping her just sort out her box over technique beforehand because she was very unfamiliar with it.
Mhm.
And that's like I said, that's how raw she was going in. So her performance was on pure fitness,
Yeah.
and
And
that
she's beating girls who've done this a long time. Like
Yeah.
Janelle, Heather,
Yeah.
myself. Like the stations are second nature to a lot of us. So good for her.
Yeah. And again, if you've never met Lauren Rentala in person, another super sweet, nice
Hmm.
person. Like she was there cheering so many people on all day. I think, and she helped do setup beforehand and like
Yeah.
just a great person, great person. Um, and to me, the girl who surprised me the most is Janelle Teal. I
Hmm.
mean, she's been around. She's good. We know she's good, but I did not know she had this kind of ultra capability. I think of Janelle Teal as as a Deca strong girl,
Yeah.
not this. And I was just blown away at her. I kept waiting for her to blow up, and it
Hmm.
just didn't happen. Like
Hmm.
she looked solid all the way through. So hats off to her. Um, did you have any idea she had that in her?
No, I mean, Janelle Teal is a grinder though.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know how someone performs later, and I know she has a bit of marathon experience. She has an army background. Um, it's interesting because I kind of was curious how it would work with the people that come from more of a Deca Strong preferred background and then the running preferred background. And what I see with Janelle and Heather being there in third and fourth is that I think the stations for Janelle and for Heather also, the stations they can use as a bit of recovery while still hitting really good splits.
Hmm.
And then they can run a consistent time because they're both not bad runners at
No.
all by any means. So if their erg times and their bike and the farmer's carry takes nothing out of them and the sled they can still smash and then it doesn't take that much out of them. And overall, I think that kept their output like a lower output through the stations and then so they can consistently run to their capabilities. So, Janelle and Heather kind of being similar athletes in that way, really excelling in the strong. Um, yeah, it seemed like that's kind of where they excelled in this whereas I was kind of the opposite, where the stations would have taken a lot more out of me. And it probably affected my running ability more than it would have Janelle or Heather.
Yeah, and since we're talking Janelle and Heather, I mean, and we mentioned the dead balls before. It looked at the end, at the very end, where Heather seemed to be closing on Janelle, and then Heather decided to skip the dead balls.
I
And
saw this whole
you
thing
had a good
unfold.
perspective. Yeah, yeah.
I was on the bike and I'm watching the race on the bike in my fifth deck fit and I see Heather pull into the tank right behind Janelle. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, Heather's catching her. And again, Heather's my girl. So I'm like, go Heather, like get on that podium. And so I'm watching it all from the bike. And I'm like trying not to scream and be over dramatic because again, I'm also getting through the assault bike. And then Heather does go down and she goes back. And then all of a sudden I see Heather let go of the tank and then walk outside of the zone. And then I look at her and she looks at me and we both go, oh my God. Heather had missed the ball overs, which was exactly what I did the day before. So then Heather had to go out, do the ball over shoulders, and then she kind of took her foot off the pedal too. Because at that point, okay,
Yeah.
you're in your fifth deck. You're not catching her.
No, and Janelle was not slowing whatsoever, and the tank or the burpees weren't going to slow her down. She was just too powerful.
Yeah, and I mean you're talking 2 minutes in a race where you have like 4 minutes left. So that yeah, that was the end for her. But oh my gosh.
So it was
Yeah.
pretty.
Hmm.
It was a great race. And then it ended with Candace Powell.
Hmm.
And Candace Powell, um, she did get time capped,
Hmm.
but they were literally cleaning up around her and kind of telling her, you're going to probably have to go off the course at this time because we're cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. And then there were many of us deciding to stay with her and hang with her and judge and support and do all that. And Decca actually, in full credit, decided, no, we have no right to pull this woman off the course. We need to let her finish what she started. And she did. And we have to pause because my pizza's here. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, back at it from a pizza pause. Like you said, Candace Powell, it was epic, and hats off to Deka for allowing her to finish. Mind you, I don't think they had a choice. I don't think we were going to let them pull her off a course. So, so it was what
No,
it
and
was.
rightfully so. I thought about this a lot before too, because I felt like the 4 hour and 15 minute time cap was a bit steep
Yeah,
for the elite women that if I would rather finish what you started. That would be really hard to be pulled off with a stringent time cap like that, especially because the age group and open waivers had what 10, 12
10
hours to
hours, 10
finish.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
incidentally, nobody got time capped in the age group and open waivers, including our dear friend Nicole, who finished to probably the most pomp and circumstance of anyone. A very big crowd, including Yancey himself and the rest of the crew. So that was
Yeah.
very good. I know she was elated and appreciated all the support. Um,
Yeah. She was 8 hours and 13 minutes. And because of an injury, she couldn't really run any of it. So she walked 99% of it. So good
yeah,
for her.
yeah, good for her. And she told me today though that she messaged me and she said that every one of her stations on every bit of the ultra was still faster than the original station she did in her first run.
Oh,
So it's
good.
kind of a cool little stat, which is great. Anyway,
Yeah.
so hats off to them. Should we run through the teams quick?
Okay.
Take a quick look at the teams here. Whoops, that's the children, the kids. Harper Polzan, way to go. Good job. There you go. Mark Polzan's girl did great. All right, teams for the men. And this was a killer race. Will Shoemaker, Dustin Rudder, first place. Cole Walkington, John Walkington, second place. Brian Neely, Zach Tate, third place. Look at the difference in time between first to second here.
So, and interestingly enough, so Cole and John ran in a later heat.
Yes.
So they were not in that race. So they essentially time trialed that, which is super impressive.
Yeah, and nobody in the wave they were in was coming close to that because they ran after I had run.
Yeah.
I saw them cross the line. That was crazy. So like we said, Cole's a beast and John is his father, correct? Like we said.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Although
so
if you saw them, you might think brothers. They
yes.
are incredibly, yeah, an
Yeah,
incredibly a man.
they are one fit family, that's for
Yeah.
sure. I think I think his aunt and girlfriend won a division. I don't know which division though. I'm sorry to say, but his aunt and girl either won an age group division or something, but it was crazy.
Hmm.
Um, for the female, Catherine Longley, Gita DeVault in first place, Jamie Virtues, Kelly Rowe in second, and Alexander Kaminsky and Abby Wiebecker.
Yeah. Wubker.
Wiebecker. Yeah, we'll go with that for second, third. So that was good. I mean, not your household names,
Hmm.
but not bad times.
Yeah.
33:16, that's not bad. I don't know if that gets you into the top
It might
15.
get you a roll down for sure.
Yeah, I think those would put you in roll down position, which is
Hmm.
well, they definitely would put you in roll down. It can put you in roll down position, but I don't think it would quite make that top 15. And then in co-ed, familiar site, Amber Tate and Kevin Gregory. Although familiar site, not a familiar site working together in a fit.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
a strong team and really focus more on the strong. Not, I mean, Amber has worked on her running a lot, and we know Kevin's running is underrated, but neither one would be considered a runner.
Hmm.
Uh, but still 29:07, good. Jamie Clausen and Jeremy Clausen. I'm going to assume a couple,
Yep.
not for
Potentially. Maybe. Hmm.
and Cameron Hamblin or
Yeah.
Cameron Hamlin and Ian Burkhart. 32:15. So good for them. And then this works like it should. Everybody else went into age group,
Yeah.
including the males. 80 to 99, for example, where Juan Carlos Obando and Dave Claxton had the win, just as an example, went into
For
81.
example, they're
For example,
randomly picked there,
randomly picked
but
example. Thanks, Juan. Good run, buddy. Rough start, but we made it pay off. And then it just in our little thing, I mean, this one came up a lot, like 30-03, 30-14, 30-26 between the top three.
and
And
again, these men were not in the same race, which
no, and
made
we,
this very exciting. And I wish these guys were all in the same race because who knows what they would have run side by side. But it was really anxiety provoking watching that, Matt and Steve race
oh,
later being so close to Juan and Dave.
Juan and I had our phones out. We were watching every split they had. Boom, boom, boom. We're like, when they're coming off the tank, we're like doing the math. How fast can they run and how much time are they going to have on the ram burpees? And we're just
Hmm.
working it out. And yeah, we narrowly got it, like I said, 11 seconds. And yeah, who knows if the three teams here, if we had raced all together, who knows what it would have been like. It would have been
Hmm.
fantastic though. So
Yeah.
come Worlds, it should be great and stuff. And I must congratulate my wife and Jill on their podium as well,
Hmm.
along with a couple other dudes. Where the hell are they? Where are they? Where are they? Some other guys got second place. And yes, we play favorites. Deal with it. These two here, Mason Beekus and Jeff Fisher, with a second place. I'm running in the elite wave with a 29 dead.
Mm.
So
And
good.
again, so they were in the race with those guys ahead of them, and that was very close. And it's so exciting to see. And again, two very different athletes, Mason and Jeff being more from the running background, and Grayson and James from more of the CrossFit style background, and their strengths kind of, one overtaking on stations, the other overtaking on running. And that's what makes the Deca Fit race, especially, really exciting because you can have two very different athletes and they all kind of come together at the end in really similar times.
And again, let's just throw out there Lily Robotham, Jill Sargent's daughter, teaming up, Zach Tate teaming up with her and getting a third place. Um, I think Lily's first ever
Hmm.
Deca Fit podium, so it was great to see. Lily also competed in the ultra, wearing a bib saying "Baby's first ultra,"
Hmm.
which was great. So, I mean, a lot of fun. Oh, here's another good one too. Mark Polzine and Finley Polzine. I think Finley Polzine, Mark's son, is like 14 years old, and they won
Hmm.
their division, which was fantastic to see. So a lot of great. And as always, the teams for me, even with the Ultra, the teams are just such a highlight. It's so
Yeah.
fast and so fun. Um,
So we should point out too, this weekend, I think the man who raced the most, Kevin Gregory, ran every race available this weekend. He raced, oh, there's my pizza. So Kevin raced the Fit Solo, he raced the Fit Teams, he raced the Fit Ruck, all on this Saturday. And then he raced the Ultra on the Sunday. So sorry.
that's okay.
So
It's great. I can't
so
even hear him.
Kevin,
It's perfect.
yeah, no, the pizza's here. So then Kevin had done 8 total Deca fits this weekend. So probably the most fits run in a weekend, as far as I would know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And
Mhm.
just to finish up, some other people to mention. Yeah, we said Jill Sargent. She teamed up with Riley and got third in their division, but she also got second in her division in the Ultra. That's fantastic to see. Sharon's running well with a great time. Charlotte and Patty doing theirs. And yes, these are all Canadians. And then these two men, John Cross and John Loney, Dear World's over 20. Watch the fuck out. The Johns are on their way,
Yeah.
narrowly winning by 27 minutes.
Mhm.
There's just not that many men in the world of that age bracket that could even compete with these guys realistically.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah.
it was something to behold. It was something to behold. So great. And Beth, I think that's good for us. We've got pizza waiting. By the
Yeah.
way, this episode provided by Dustin Needham, making bets that he can't that he doesn't win. Thanks, bud, for the pizza. We'll send you a bill. Beth, take us home.
Yeah, thanks so much everyone for listening. We had such an incredible weekend this weekend. Thank you to everyone who came up and just the love that we received again for what we do here. We do this for fun, for no other reason, and we appreciate everyone that listens and all the encouragement for what we do. So, and to everyone that raced this weekend, so impressive. Especially with this ultra this weekend. I was in awe of the athletes that came out and, just did some things that I didn't, and a lot of us didn't really know if it was possible. So, continue to impress. I think what we're doing in this hybrid space is just really breaking down some barriers and showing what athletes are really capable of, who can just be strong and the endurance focus and all the things in between. So just keep doing what you're doing. We have such an incredible community in the hybrid space also, which is another thing too that this weekend really confirmed to me once again, as if I needed it another time. But to everyone, we love you all. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time.
Take care.